Hi everybody, Susan here with Pumpkin Hill Stampers. I have a Stampin' Show and Tell demonstration for you today. Here is the card I'm going to be demonstrating. I'm going to be showing you the no-line watercoloring technique. And this stamp set is the Happy Birthday to You stamp set, which you can find in the current celebration promotion from Stampin' Up. When you purchase $50 worth of product, you can choose free items from here, or some of the items are $100 worth of product. But this one happens to be a $50 item, the Happy Birthday to You stamp set. As you can see, there's a few other fun samples here in the catalog. Remember, our catalogs are idea books as well. So there's some ideas for you. But I'm going to show you this one, and like I said, it is a no-line watercoloring technique. So I've been wanting to do this for a while now, and I thought, well, you know what, this is as good as any to go ahead and show you. So I'm going to go ahead and do the watercoloring first, and then we'll put the card together. Okay, so I have a piece of my watercolor paper, and the technique says to stamp your image in Sahara sand, which is a very, very light neutral ink. Okay, so I'm going to ink up my stamp with my Sahara sand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp off first onto my scrap mat, and then I'm going to stamp it a second time onto my watercolor paper. So first I stamp it onto my grid sheet, okay, and then I'm going to huff it, and I'm going to stamp it onto my watercolor paper. Now, I didn't wet my watercolor paper, and I did just flip it, so I hope it stamps in one piece. So I'm pressing that into my, yeah, it's a little jagged, so I'm just going to flip that right over. I'll just do it again. Paper has two sides. We can use both of them. Alright, so let's try it again, and I'll try not to fudge my stamp this time. Okay, press and hold that just for a minute so that ink transfers over to that watercolor paper. So usually when we're using watercolor paper, I tell you to pre-moisten it. I'm not pre-moistening it, I'm leaving it nice and dry. Okay, and even when I do my painting on the watercolor paper, I'm going to leave it dry. So I am going to be using my aqua painter. I'm going to be using three colors. I've got Petal Pink, which is the color of the cardstock. I've got Grapefruit Grove, which is my accent color, and I've got Pear Pizzazz for my leaves. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Petal Pink. So as you can see, I have a little drop of watercolor or refill ink in the lid there, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of that ink and just kind of get it on my brush there. And now I'm going to come over and I'm going to lightly paint the cake, the icing portion of the cake. Now if I color outside lines on this super light color, I'm not so concerned, because I'm going to be adding color to the flower and to the leaves, which are darker. So with the lightest color, it's not as necessary for you to take your time and really stay inside your lines. Now as you can see, as I color with my aqua painter over my stamped image, those Sahara sand lines, they're there, but they're very light. And if you were even more brave than I was when I was doing this for the video, you could stamp it even lighter than I did. I would say mine was still pretty dark. But the other thing is, the darker you paint it, the more those lines are going to blend in with other colors in your ink. So it's going to add a little more water in there. So as my paint gets more vibrant, those lines are going to become more of a shadow line on the image. Alright, so let's leave that for our cake there. Okay, so now I'm going to move into my Grapefruit Grove. Now I'm just stepping up in color here, so I'm not worried about my aqua bunch being cleaned out. So I'm just going to pick some of that Grapefruit Grove, and now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do the flowers. So I'm just, again, my aqua brush is wet, but my paper is dry. So I have a lot of control of my ink right now on my paper. And I can just kind of push my brush around to fill in the image. So you might think watercoloring, oh, that takes a lot of time. Well, when you start with the stamped image, it's a whole lot easier than if you're starting with just a blank piece of paper and you've got to not only paint the image, but then also paint all the color on the image. So this is a nice way to watercolor, but yet not have to struggle with starting with a blank piece of paper. All right, now I'm going to pick up a little darker ink and I'm going to come in and I'm going to add a little more shading to my flower edges because I want my flower to really pop off of the cake icing, right? I really want them to pop a little bit. So go around, add some more pigment with my water-based ink. And after your image dries, if you again want to go back, you can keep going back and adding more layers of ink to your image until you have the final product that you're looking for. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab direct ink and I'm just going to go back and dab nice and bold on these little buds on the flowers, just so they really stand out. Just a little bit of detail on our card. Okay, so now I can swish my brush in there. The other thing I would recommend is just rub it out onto your scrap mat until it's running clear again, and then switch your colors. Okay, so now I'm moving to Pear Pizzazz. This is going to be for my leaves. So I'm going to pick up some Pear Pizzazz, and I'm just going to come right in here and paint into all my little leaf spots that I've left, mostly without any watercolor on them yet. Pear Pizzazz is a nice light green in our collection, so that you can start with, again, a base of green, and then you can go back and add another layer if you want to be some shape and shadow on there. Okay, so here is our cake, our leaves, our flowers. The only thing I left to do is the cake plate, which I'm also going to do in the Pear Pizzazz. So a lot of times I say I have a rule of three colors for a project. It simplifies the project a bit because then I'm not trying to coordinate too many colors together. But with the two-tone of the petal pink and the grapefruit grove, and then the third color for the leaves, I decided to stick with this color. Now I did add quite a bit of water to my brush for this one because I wanted that plate to be kind of glass-like. My mom had great green glassware when I was growing up, and this reminds me of that. So, okay, so there is the painting portion, right? Not hard at all. Okay, clean my brush, put that aside. Now, let's go ahead and do the rest of the card project. I'm going to move this little mess mat out of the way just so that I don't get water on other things where it doesn't belong. Okay, so there's that. So here's our kit. So I've got my petal pink base, nice simple card scored down the center. I have another layer of petal pink, and this one we're actually going to run through with the stone embossing folder. Now the stone embossing folder is currently in the Celebration catalog. It comes with a bundle set of The Power of Hope. So the stamp set plus the embossing folder is a bundle that you can get from Celebration when you purchase $100 worth of product. So that's how I got my hands on this fun new folder. So let's go ahead and do that embossing. Now, when you use our new 3D embossing folders, okay, that's the trick, the 3D embossing folders, you need the blue embossing plate. Now I say need. Okay, well, everyone has their own opinion. I recommend, for simplicity, that you just get the blue embossing plate. If you don't mind shimming your layers, you certainly can work out how many shims you need, whether it's cardstock or thin plastic. It is really each crafter's own decision as to what they want to use, but I do recommend, if it says 3D on it from Stampin' Up, I would just get the blue plate, because then you don't have to worry about it and it will speed up your stamping. Now, our new plates also have this line on them, so if we wanted a nice squared up image, now this one's stone, so it's not so important that it's right lined up, but if you did, you just line up your edge with your cardstock like that. So I'm going to put this down on my base. I'm going to put my blue plate over the top, and I'm just going to run that through my Big Shot machine. Whoop, and right into my ink. No worries. Okay, so there's my stone embossed paper. So I've got a textured background now. I'm also going to add a layer of ribbon. Now, you've seen me do this before. I wrap and tuck it behind that layer. So I'm just going to put some snail along the edges here. I'm going to put this ribbon right across, tack it. I just bring it across and wrap it, so there's no adhesive on the front, just on the back. Now, I'm also going to pop this layer up on dimensionals. So I'm going to do my four corners, and then I'm also going to use kind of a piece of my edge, and I just kind of, it helps adhere that ribbon a little more securely. I just peel those off. One more, there. Okay, so this is just going to get layered on the front of our card. So that's just stepped in 1/4 of an inch from the base of my card size. Alright, so now, because this is my coordinating color, I have the Grapefruit Grove. Now, watercolor paper sometimes doesn't like to stick with our adhesive, so what I always recommend is that you go ahead and use dimensionals, or our tear and tape, or our old sticky strip, something very conducive to adhering different materials together. So I'm just going to put, I'm going to put a couple more on there too. Alright, I'm going to put probably what you consider a little bit overload on the dimensionals, but it's better than it popping off. So, pull off the back of my dimensionals here. I think I got them all. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Oh, nope, there's one. Okay, so I'm just going to layer my cake right onto my Grapefruit Grove. And then that I'm going to have and just snail down on my, come on snail, onto my card front like that. Press. Now if you don't want to go over that, you flip it over and you press it this way. I recommend that actually. Okay, so there's our card front. Then on the inside, this set has this beautiful happy birthday written expression. So here's my happy birthday stamp. And I'm going to use the darker of my two-tone, so I'm using the Grapefruit Grove ink. And I'm just going to put my happy birthday in there. And because I don't recommend you send a hand stamped card without your envelope having some sort of stamping on it, I'm also doing the back flip. Okay, so there's the project. Now, if you want to go one step further and add just a little bit of sparkle to your project, we have our Wink of Stella. Okay, and so I'm just going to paint my flower. And you squeeze it, don't do it right over your project. Sometimes that turns out bad. So give it a little squeeze, paint your flower, add just a little bit of sparkle. Doesn't add any weight, it just adds a little bit of sparkle. And so there's that. Alright, so there's our project, guys and gals. So if you have any questions, please remember, pop over to the blog. I do put all of the instructions on my blog post, which is shared today as well. And you can get all the product details, and you can get all my project details, measures and whatnot. And while you're there, if you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Customer person who you order with, I would be very grateful if you decided to shop with me on my online store. And you can also check out my new Facebook group. If you go to my Facebook page, pumpkinhillstampers.com, I have a new group I'm starting there where I'll be doing a show and tell once a month party. So you're happy to join me over there too. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's project. As again, you can hop over to the blog, get all the details, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks so much. Happy celebration. Bye-bye.